Did you know that the best-selling BMW M car for the past 2 years has been electric? Yeah, what you're seeing here is the fully electric BMW i4 M50. And so what does it exactly feel like when a BMW M car goes electric?
So if the BMW i4 M50 looks familiar to you, well, it's basically because this is the electric version of the BMW 4 Series. So this is not a bespoke EV, and it's really literally just the 4 Series becoming an electric car. But before we get to the technical part, let's first talk about the way the car looks. So yun nga, as mentioned, it just looks like the 4 Series, or basically in this case, the 420i Grand Coupe M Sport that's currently on sale in the Philippines. Only difference here is that being an i-car, being a BMW i4, yung kanang grille is enclosed because, well, this is an electric car, wala tong engine up front. So yeah, the grille's enclosed, still pretty large, so that's up to you whether you like the grille or not. But personally, I've come to appreciate the large kidney grills of BMWs. So this is the M50, so it gets the M Sport look as standard being an M performance vehicle. Then you're gonna see here slim LED headlights flanking the large grille. Of course, being a BMW i-car, blue yung kanyang emblem, but being an M performance car in this case, nawala yung kanyang blue highlights, and in its place is a set of black trim. So you have gloss black here sa kanyang rocker panels along with gloss black trim sa kanyang side windows. And then 19-inch wheels as you're gonna see here, which inside those wheels, by the way, are M Sport brakes with blue calipers. So this is an M performance car, not an M Sport, so a little bit below the full-fledged M cars, so it deserves this signature winged side mirror, which is a signature of M performance cars and the full-fledged M cars. Frameless doors, of course, being a Grand Coupe or a coupe in BMW speak, so basta may coupe siya, it deserves sort of this frameless door treatment. So this doesn't have a trunk lid because what this has instead is a very practical fastback. So the whole thing here is the hatch, which opens up to a 470-liter trunk space, a bit smaller than the 3 Series, pero you have to remember that there's a larger opening here because of that fastback tailgate. Let's close that. And basically in terms of looks, it pretty much echoes that of the 4 Series Grand Coupe, and not much really separates this i4 M50 from its gas counterparts. So that's a good time lang for us to step inside the BMW i4 M50 to see what it's like from the inside. So here inside the BMW i4 M50, and well, you're gonna be greeted pa rin to a sense of familiarity because in terms of the way it looks, it's pretty much the same that you would find in the 3 Series, the 4 Series, the gas versions of those two cars basically. So everything here is gonna be familiar to you. It's still pretty much the same robust interior that feels really well built as typical of BMW interiors. Talagang tangke yung pakiramdam ng mga panels niya. Even the door thud, despite being a frameless door, is still pretty much very solid. So there's a generous serving of aluminum tetragon trim here, being an M performance car. So I really like that. I love interior, or rather I love aluminum interior trims. Well, yun nga, it's very familiar, so there's not much to talk about in terms of the way it looks. But what you have here in the M50 is that you have nice, highly bolstered M Sport bucket seats, or at least sport seats, which really feel good and provide a lot of support as you drive through a lot of corners at high speeds. Now, as for that infotainment system, the iDrive 8.5, there's a bit of a tweak wherein there's now a home button sa kanyang touchscreen. But of course, you can still use the iDrive controller that we've come to be familiar with for the past few years. So, iDrive 8.5, by the way, introduces BMW Connected Drive. As a result of that, yung kanyang infotainment system, yung kanyang navigation, now comes with live traffic updates, which is very useful apart from, just using Waze, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto, which this car also has. So, meaning if you're gonna do the voice command stuff, the hey, when you say the hey blank, say that brand, you can now have more functions with the voice command because the car is connected to the internet, which you can, by the way, control to the My BMW app. So it's the first in the luxury segment to have vehicle telematics. So what the My BMW app does as well is yung kanyang vehicle data or vehicle system check because, well, you're able to view your mga oil level. In the case of the gas and diesel cars, you're able to also check yung charging status mo, along with other vital information such as yung range mo, of course, yun nga, when you have an electric car. Let's go back to the infotainment system ngayon, and for me, iDrive 8.5 is an improvement over iDrive 8. Yun nga lang, I still miss the physical controls for the air conditioning, and for me, yeah, even if you now have the temperature and the fan speed controls readily available here sa kanyang infotainment system, it's still not the best compared to having dedicated physical controls. So, other features worth mentioning is the wireless charging pad along with the Harman Kardon surround sound system. So, yeah, I think it's a good time na for us to move to the back seats of the BMW i4 M50. So here in the back of the BMW i4 M50, as you're gonna see, because of that sloping roofline, there's a little less headroom here compared to the 3 Series sedan. But in terms of legroom, actually joke lang, in terms of legroom, it's still reduced compared to the 3 Series sedan, and that's actually mainly due to these M Sport seats being thick and eating into a bit of your legroom sa rear. Now, it's not exactly the best place for 3 adults here, and that's because the interior here at the back, medyo mas less yung shoulder room mo. There's like a sort of scalloping here sa sides niya kasi, which sort of forces the rear occupants to be mas dikit, which therefore results in less room or less shoulder room sa middle passenger. And as for amenities, you have here yung usual mong center armrest with a cup holder and your own climate zone sa likod. You also have 2 USB-C charging ports, and yeah, sa totoo lang, best kept for 2 people yung kanyang rear seats because here with the third passenger sa middle, yeah, in terms of legroom, let's be honest, because of the large tunnel, mag-aagawan ng foot space yung itong middle passenger with the ones in the outer seats. So, not the best in terms of rear seat space, but pretty good enough for what is supposed to be a 4-door coupe. With that said, let's now talk about the car's drivetrain, which you have 2 choices here for the BMW i4.
So the BMW i4 range kicks off with the eDrive 35, and that's good for 286 horsepower. Cute. That's because the i4 M50, on the other hand, has up to 544 horsepower. That's good enough for a 0 to 100 kph time of less than 4 seconds. Despite the added performance of the i4 M50, it actually has more range than the i4 eDrive 35, thanks to a much larger battery, and as you're gonna see later, its excellent energy efficiency. So based on the lack of a front trunk, along with the presence of a transmission tunnel, this isn't built on a bespoke EV platform. And yet, as you're gonna see later, hindi ito hadlang sa BMW i4 to be an excellent electric vehicle.
So how does a BMW M or M performance electric car feel like in terms of the acceleration? Well, with more than 500 horsepower with this car, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Yo, dude! I think my brain fluid just went all the way back to my skull. Wow, that's a lot of instant power with this car. As you're currently hearing, this car is currently in sport mode, and with the car in sport mode, well, you have this amplified fake sound, kung sabihin natin. So it's sounds produced by Hans Zimmer, which you can hear in most of their BMW i cars, their electric vehicles basically. But here the M cars, or the M performance cars at least, in sport mode, mas rinig mo siya, mas parang theatrical yung tunog nung kanyang electric car noise. So it's pretty good actually. And with the car ngayon in sport mode, so the steering stiffens up a bit, becomes mas may resistance, mas mabigat siya. The adaptive M suspension also stiffens up a bit to, of course, lessen the body roll. And the power delivery becomes hyper aggressive in this car, though still controllable when you drive. It's a lately in sport mode, but if you're gonna put your foot down, It's really good actually. Then of course, being a BMW, as for handling, it's pretty good considering that this car weighs 2.2 tons. So despite that weight, you can actually push this car a bit to the corners because, well, there's that all-wheel drive grip, and the adaptive suspension does a good job in keeping the car flat through corners. Steering's precise, though if I were being honest, it's a bit short on feedback as usual with a lot of newer BMWs these days. So there's really not much in terms of communication through the wheel. It is precise though, as mentioned, and reacts really fast, especially in sport mode. So speaking of which, let's put the car in comfort mode na ngayon ulit. And yeah, the suspension softens up, and then the fake electric car noises lessen somewhat a bit, and the steering lightens up a bit as well. So this is basically the car in default mode. And then other aspects worth talking about here is that the brakes are really good, the M Sport brakes, in keeping this heavy sedan in check. Yun nga lang though, because of the weight part, I have to be honest though, here in these roads, you're not gonna be really able to reach the limits of its weight, yung ng pakiramdam. But if you're gonna be on track and if there's an opportunity to do so in an open space, you're gonna eventually reach a point where you start to feel its 2.2 ton weight. So when you go through yung mga sunod-sunod na corners, yung mga talagang chicanes and all that stuff, yung mga sunod-sunod na mga hairpin turns, that's when you start to feel that this is quite a heavy sports sedan because of all of those batteries keeping the car, or at least weighing the car down. On the upside though, because the batteries are placed in the lower portion of the vehicle, ang baba na ng center of gravity, which of course helps then in the car reducing the body roll. But yun nga lang, again, with the car weighing 2.2 tons, there's only so much that BMW could do to defy the laws of physics. But on the upside, yun nga, for a car that weighs 2.2 tons, it does corner extremely well. What's amazing here, by the way, is the fact that despite having 544 horsepower, this is actually a pretty efficient electric car because currently, as we've hammered this through a bit of corners, the energy consumption is currently at 4.9 kilometers per kilowatt hour, which is really good for an electric car with this much performance. For perspective, the Audi Q8 e-tron I drove before this car, that was its average, yung kanyang 4.9 or 4.8 kilometers per kilowatt hour figure na yun. So, as a result, yung kanyang real-world range turns out to be around 480 to 510 kilometers. Pretty good actually, especially, again, with this much performance nga out of an electric car. Then finally, as usual with an electric car, meron itong one-pedal drive mode. Though yun nga lang, what I don't like about it is that you have to adjust the settings for the one-pedal drive mode through the infotainment system, which is, compared to other cars where you can use it through the paddle shifters or the gear lever. But yeah, that's BMW's iDrive 8.5 for you in the i4 M50. So now that we've hit the highway with the BMW i4 M50, as you're gonna be not surprised probably if you've read or watched my reviews of other BMWs or basically any other German luxury car, the i4 M50 is unsurprisingly very refined, very quiet here at high speeds. Of course, being electric, the usual cliche nga na there's no engine noise, there's no drivetrain, drive shaft noise, or transmission noise. It's a very quiet car, of course. But in a luxury car lalo, that level of refinement is further amplified since you have fixed sound insulation sa windows, sa doors, sa flooring ng car, which, of course, with the batteries being located on the floor of the car, mas lalong makapal yung sound insulation na niya. So, of course, it adds to the rigidity aspect of the car, then yung kanyang large batteries sa kanyang chassis. So, on the upside, apart from having added rigidity for handling, at least when you're through corners, ang isa pang benefit din dun is the car has less vibrations whenever going through bumps. So again, also worth mentioning here in the i4 M50 is the electric drivetrain, because despite having 544 horsepower, this car is still very docile, very sedate when you want it, or rather when you need it at highways. So yes, it's very instantaneous when you provoke the car. So kung gusto mong overtake, it's really gonna take off like that. Pero treat the car sensibly. And sa ngayon actually, whenever I'm driving this car, I'm putting it mostly in eco mode because again, 544 horsepower, that's a lot of power to handle. So to be honest, putting it in Eco Pro is pretty much enough for my daily use, which As a result, despite having that amount of power, itong i4 M50 is actually pretty efficient. Now here in the highway though, itong i4 M50 is doing 6.3 kilometers per kilowatt hour, which is very efficient for an electric car, especially considering how much power this car produces. That now brings me on to other aspects like the ride quality, which is really, really good. This car, of course, being an M performance car, not even an M Sport, but an M performance, so below the full-fledged M cars, this car gets adaptive suspension standard, and as a result of that, there's this strong dual personality with the way the car handles. As you've seen kanina, ang maganda sa kanya is, the suspension is very controlled and soft, but not to a point na there's a lot of vertical motion, so that's pretty good. Lastly, let's talk about the car's advanced driver assistance systems, because yes, the i4 M50 actually has advanced driver assistance systems, thankfully. So as mapapansin nyo, a lot of newer BMWs in the Philippines now come with at least automatic emergency braking as standard equipment. So the i4 M50 also has that, along with lane departure warning, not lane keeping assist nga lang though, just lane departure warning, because this doesn't have adaptive cruise control and all that stuff. But this does have blind spot warning and the cross traffic alert. So at least the basic advanced driver assistance systems are now fitted here in the i4 M50.
So the BMW i4 range kicks off with the eDrive 35, and that's on sale for a little under 4.5 million pesos. On the other hand, the performance-oriented M50 that we have here retails for a little under 6 million pesos. It must be noted, however, that BMW just revealed the facelifted i4, which comes with minor exterior and interior changes, though the mechanicals are still the same. So, to sum it all up, an electric BMW M car can indeed be fun. And as you've seen here with our daily drive with this car, hindi siya compromised despite not using a bespoke EV platform. So just imagine BMW when it finally comes out with the upcoming Neue Class bespoke EV platform. So, would I want an electric BMW M car? Well, the petrol-head in me says gusto ko pa rin at least ng tunog ng isang inline 6. But if you want a high-performance electric BMW, then the BMW i4 M50 is both thoroughly fun and perfectly usable on a daily basis.